going on, guys? Welcome back to W.D.Y.D. CSP. What do you do as a central store processor? All right, guys, if you've seen the fast forwarded video of me putting a lap tray together, here is the full 45 minutes it took me to assemble this tray. So first things first, guys, when you assemble a tray, I don't care what kind of tray it is, whether it's instruments, whether it has a holder, laps, whatever, you should remove all your instruments from its holding device, whether it's a tray or a rack as such. All right, we're going to put a rack off to the side. Now, this laparoscopic instrument tray also has some general instruments. Now, if you guys know, I do not reach in baskets. I am a dumper, so I am getting all my instruments out of there, slightly dump it, make sure all my instruments are out of there, and then inspect the basket because that is a medical device. And next is checking this silicone mat here that actually should have been removed out of the tray when cleaning, but that's a subject for another video. So here I am placing the mat back and putting some indicators in there, right? Following the IFUs for rigid containers and putting type 5 indicators in there, one on the opposite side of each corner. All right, so time to sort off. So, of course, I'm going to grab all the instruments that are easy to see. I use a retractor to spread my instruments out just in case there's some sharps in there that I can't see right off the back. All right, getting these retractors out of the way. And when you're sorting your instruments, my technique is, it's the easiest for me to do, is to put all like instruments together. So all scissors together, all forceps together, all your retractors together, all your little small handheld instruments such as elevators, things as such together, and then pair up all the exact same instruments. So all your hemostats, all your Oshner's, all your Kellys, etc., etc. So here I am sorting out. So very easily. The reason why I do this is because you actually have an opportunity to touch every instrument every single time, right? It's almost like a two-part inspection. So you'll know if something's wrong with an instrument, if there's some adhesive. You're grabbing these instruments one at a time. You can also grab them in groups. But as you're grabbing them, you have an opportunity to actually visualize the field and say, okay, something is wrong here. Let me put this back in the basket, take it back to decon, and things of that nature. So I'm very touchy-feely with my instruments because that is part of my inspection process, right? I also get to feel how those instruments feel. As you can see, they're in an open position. I'm kind of closing them up. I can feel if one is stiff and requires some instrument milk to relubricate them. So you want to optimize your workstation, right? So you don't want things in the way. So you want to go ahead, grab all these instruments, pair them up, put it together. Now, if you've noticed, guys, I have not scanned my basket yet. We use a tracking system. I do not scan my basket until I've sorted my instruments out. Why do I do that? It can be contradictive if you're being tracked by production and it shows some gaps in your productivity. But I don't do it because what if I find a dirty instrument here, right? Now I have to go ahead and take that instrument basket back to decon. I got to cancel my load. I have to scan my load back to decon. So in this way, I kind of justify that I'm sorting and make sure I got everything I need, because some of the baskets, as you're doing baskets over and over again, you kind of get used to what you're looking at and you begin saying, oh, something's missing here or this doesn't look right. So here I've already scanned my basket. I'm acknowledging whatever pop-up comes up on the screens, and I don't do my baskets I don't do my trays from top to bottom. I actually look for instruments that I can identify very quickly. Like if I know I have to put retractors on the bottom of my basket, I look for those first and be able to identify them, right? So I see my retractors, I place that on the bottom of the basket, okay, give it a quick little inspection. Inspection doesn't have to be 2-3 minutes. It can be quick, especially with single metal retractors. Really quick look at what you're looking at. And then I go ahead and I look for my section in the count sheet that talks about the stringer, right? So that's going to go in the bottom of my basket, utilizing my lighted magnification. Okay. Instruments that are over 8 and 9 inches, over 7 inches, really. 7 1/4 is probably limited, but 8 inch, 9 inch, 10 inch instruments, the tap test really isn't really effective. I'm tap testing these. These are actually 10 inch Kellys. The tap test doesn't really apply there because you're never going to put it on one click. You're going to click it twice, maybe 3 times. So I found that doing a tap test on those larger, longer instruments really doesn't apply too much. I'm looking at needle drivers. You see I do the illumination test to see if any lights go through the jaw, inspect that box lock, inspect that tungsten carbide insert, and then doing my little tap test, right? Okay, next needle holders here, doing the same thing. Illumination test, looking at those jaws, okay, under lighted magnification again. Making sure there's no cracks or anything like that, okay, because tungsten carbide inserts are very susceptible to cracks and chips, so you want to look out for that. Okay, and moving straight down the line, right? Now, I do a few instruments and then I acknowledge it on my count sheet. That way I never lose a place there, so I probably do 2, and I'm always looking one ahead. That's what's going to build up your speed when you're assembling your trays, is always look one line ahead, right? So if I know the hemostats are the ones I'm looking for, then maybe the next one that I might be looking on the field for are, let's say, Alice clamps. So I know automatically that while I'm doing this testing on my instruments, that I'm scanning the field for my next instrument to grab. That's what helps me build up speed. I don't just focus on the line that I'm looking at. I continue going on. So a couple distractions here, of course, because I am, not only assembling a tray, but I have other duties that I have to take care of here. But continuing this assembly. Now, I stated in the beginning of this video that it took me 45 minutes to do this tray. And the point I'm trying to make here is that when we build trays and we truly incorporate quality, there's time that's involved in there. Okay. I always have the saying, and it's been the saying in sterile processing since I began this field 12 years ago, that it's quality over quantity. But how true is that statement? If you really want to have quality over quantity, then you need to implement all the quality tools involved. Now, this is the basic minimum quality into this set. Now, we do have borescopes, but both of our borescopes were down. So I couldn't use my borescope, so I employed older methods of inspecting for cleanliness for my instrumentation. I also didn't implement any soil testing. So if, again, think about your processes, okay? What took you 10 minutes, 11 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes to do, the more quality you implement into your sets, more testing every instrument, tap testing every instrument, testing every scissor, installation testing, soil testing, all that takes time, so it's going to add. Now, I will say I've had on this video, I did have some wasted movements. Okay, I probably could have shaved off like 15 minutes from my assembly time. But again, as I stated, I had other duties to do, but I wanted to show you all the little hiccups and all the little distractions that can happen while assembling as well. There was instances where my tap test failed and I had to get a replacement instrument. There was instances where I inspected my instrument and I knew it was damaged, so I had to go look for the instrument, and I knew where they were at, but sometimes where they're at is not always where they're at, right? It's probably in another location, so that took some time as well. Answering a couple questions, people asking you for help, all that takes time. You'll also see at the end of the video that I wind up grabbing the wrong size basket, thinking that this was a longer laparoscopic tray when it required a shorter basket. All those are wasted movements and could have been planned ahead to minimize it, but it's all part of our daily assembly, right? This is what happens in real time. What happens, what we put down on paper sounds great. What we learn in the book sounds great. but this is actual assembly on the field, right? You see how I tap test, and now when I tap test, I have to open those instruments up to put them on a stringer, right? I can't leave them closed. That takes time as well. Okay, and this gets faster, it does. I'm not saying that, oh, this is such a slow motion and we don't need to do this. No, we should do this on every instrument, every tray. Inspect, use your lighted magnification to look, to make sure that you're not missing something that you can't see with the naked eye. Okay, when you tap test, you have to close the instruments to do that. Then you have to reopen the instruments to put on a stringer. And you see, it doesn't take long to do the tap test, right? But what does your policy and procedure say? Do you tap test every single instrument, or you only do it randomly? Now I'm going over to, I believe these are my scissors. So your scissors, definitely that box lock. You want to do that drop test to make sure that there's some friction, and then the sharpness testing again. And you want to make sure that when you do that sharpness testing, if there's any residual testing material on the jaws, you want to get that off of there, because that's foreign material if it's opened up in the OR. So you have to inspect the instrument yet again. Quality, guys. Quality costs time. Again, I stated there's some distractions, so here's some questions that are being asked that I have to look into. So, and again, not a lot of time taken off, but enough that significantly throws me or throws an individual off their rhythm, right? It can throw you off. So, all that. And again, making sure that you're paying attention to what you're doing, because those distractions can cause errors, right? Checking off, making sure that the scissors I have are the correct scissors, checking that box lock, checking the screws on your scissors to make sure that they're not backing out or hiding any bioburden. That's the common area where you get some bioburden. So I'm checking this scissor here, and I'm like, something didn't seem right to me. So I went ahead and I palmed it, and it's snagging on the very corner. So now I'm looking at the scissor. I know it's a Metzenbaum, but I want to place the right item number in there. I'm making sure I'm going to get the right item number. I place that scissor off to the side, and now I'm looking for the scissor, right? And here's the other part of it. What does your policy and procedure states about getting instruments out of your backup wall? Do you need to send that instrument to decon to get cleaned? In the manual, we're taught that instruments in the backup wall should be cleaned. I didn't do that here, right? So I went ahead, I got an instrument off the backup wall, and I just put it into the set. So what does your policies and procedures state about that? Again, that's time consuming as well. So again, even though I got that scissor off the backup wall, still inspecting it for cleanliness, still testing it for the drop test, still sharpness testing, because scissors and instruments move in and out of the backup wall. Not everything back there is brand new. Not everything back there is clean. Some people, when they shouldn't, throw those instruments back there when they're not clean. All right. Doing my towel clips. You definitely want to inspect those rings for adhesive. Very common for them to have adhesive on those rings. All right. So I'm done with my stringer. All that is done. Now comes the bread and butter of this set, which is the laparoscopic instruments, the actual insulated instruments. This was the one that takes some work, guys. This one, let's follow me through on this one. Actually, I'm not there yet. I'm actually gonna do my scissors. Apologize. So we put our not scissors, I'm gonna do my forceps. So we put our forceps in the craft style bag. So I placed an indicator in there. All right, I put that little spatula handle there. Looking at my forceps, making sure that the tips close and align, that there's no bioburden on the jaws or in the little section where the forceps meet, the weld area of it. Okay, next forceps that I need, doing the same thing. Again, utilizing that lighted magnification. Because again, the naked eye, we can see most things with the naked eye, but smaller instances, especially with like Adson tooths and those fine tip forceps, you definitely want to utilize that lighted magnification. And as you can tell, that lighted magnification is a lot better than the illumination on the table itself. Okay. Always checking that the tips meet and that they close properly, especially with toothed instruments. Those instruments, the tooth can actually wear down, or kind of be like snaggle tooth, I say, where it can be off to the side. You want to make sure that it's closes correctly. Okay, checking off my boxes here. Okay, making sure that I'm not missing anything. And then I'm also scanning down my count sheet for instruments that I see on the field to see if they're included in that count sheet. So this was the knife handles. Okay, I knew that they belonged in this set. So scanning the field because I can identify them without looking for a part number very quickly. I also had some, I think those are sun retractors on my hand there. I'll do that in the bag as well. Okay, check them off, looking on the count sheet to check them off, and that's it for that. All right, here we go with these laparoscopic instruments. Now, here's the part where I tell you, lap instruments, if you looked at my shorter video, lap instruments require some inspecting. And this had quite a few lap instruments, some single assembled or one-piece laparoscopic instruments, and some that required assembly. So all the insulated ones require that insulation testing, okay, trying to pull that insulation back to make sure that it's not slipping. For the ones that are one piece, you still have to do that test, right? Make sure that the insulation's intact. It also gives you an opportunity to feel for any nicks or cuts on there. Like, see, I felt a little rust spot there on that instrument there. I seen that it was damaged right there in the base. I seen that it was torn apart. So I pulled that off to the side. Okay, checking the instrument. This instrument here, you have to check the tip because there's like a little washer there. Make sure that it's intact and good. Okay, continuing my inspection. It also gives me, like I said, it gives me a chance to feel that insulation for any like cuts in the insulation or any nicks that's going to expose the metal down there. Okay, for those that are nicked up like that, I don't even have to use the insulation tester because I know I see the damage, right? So continuing to feel. All right, so going ahead, moving my instruments off to the side. Let me go grab my lap tester. I wanted to show you guys this on screen because I usually do it on a back table if it's available for me, just to free up some space. So again, simple test here, lap tester on, connect the alligator clip to the metal, and then place it in the proper size diameter. Now you see how quickly I lap test this. It doesn't have to be a slow process, guys. It doesn't have to be slow motion. You see that one failed right off the back. I had one that failed. Put that off to the side. All right. Okay, you're going to know right off the back where you get one that fails. Okay. I'm continuing there, making sure I close the jaws so that I can place the right millimeters. Now here, I felt there's right there in the base. Put that off to the side. That failed. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. And I've had some good conversations with individuals with lap instruments that they fail at the base, and they'd be like, well, that part doesn't go into the patient. But the user is exposed to that part. So if a surgeon gets shocked while he's using a lap instrument, let's say he has a fine hole in his glove or a tear in his glove, he's going to be pissed. So our job in sterile processing is all about the patient, but we serve the users. Okay, we have to look out for the users first. So when we're testing and assembling our instruments, it's to meet the user's needs. And an installation test that fails at the base puts the user at risk. So we have to make sure that the whole instrument passes, just not the tip that enters the patient. We can't just, that's not installation testing, guys. All right, so continuing the testing here. All right, and I think I show you guys, yeah, so I want to show you that one instrument that failed. All right, so I'm hooking this back up, grabbing my little tester. See the red dot on the top right there, right at the base? That little red fail right there. Okay, that's a bad instrument. It's definitely going to beep in the beginning because there's metal, and then along the insulation, it should not beep, and not at the base either. All right, so put my installation tester back, and now the instruments that need to be replaced before I start assembling, I need to go find them, right? All right, so I got 3 instruments that need to be replaced. I have 2 single assembled units. One's a 5mm, one's a 10mm, and then I have a sleeve. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and pause my count sheet there. So I wind up pausing it, and I was looking for the basket where the instruments were at, and I remembered that instrument basket is actually along the back wall, because this is where I got this rack from. So I was like, oh man, I didn't grab the surplus instruments. So even though I'm still looking there, again, wasted movements, guys. This is wasted time here. Now it's not long, but it's wasted movements. Now I did find the sleeve that I was looking for, and now I'm gonna go look for the 2 instruments that are single use. Now notice how long it takes me to find these instruments. Now I don't have a stopwatch with me, and I don't know what the time is right now, but it was a good probably a minute or 2 maybe. Probably longer than that. Let's see. Yeah, I'm back there looking. And I knew exactly where they were at, but the way we store it, there's always better ways to do things. We store it the best way we possibly can. But in the process of me looking for those instruments, I probably found 2 more instruments that were damaged. So I wind up taking those out of circulation as well, because I grabbed one and said, ooh, that's probably the one that I need. And that was damaged. Now, I can tell you right now that one of the instruments of the 2 that I took back there, I could not find. So I had to mark that one missing. So, and it's funny because I think probably a year ago, I heard not a podcast, but someone was speaking and was talking about quality. And one of the statements made that an instrument set with a missing instrument is still a quality instrument set. And in my mind, that's not true. Okay? Think about it this way. If you buy a Louis Vuitton bag and it's missing a buckle, is that still a quality item that you have? Or let's say you buy a pair of sneakers and one of the holes that the shoestring is supposed to go into wasn't punched out. Would you still pay full price for that sneaker, or would you consider that a outlet brand sneaker? Would you pay full price? No, quality is determined by the user, right? And the craftsmanship. So think about it. Anytime something of high value is made and the quality is bad, it's often sold at a lower market. That's what the outlet stores are for, right? So maybe this set doesn't require all these instruments, but it still has a missing instrument. They wanted that instrument in that set for a reason. It's no longer a quality instrument set. Is it a usable set? It may be, but it's no longer quality. All right, that's a bargain. Okay, if I'm picking a case, I'm gonna overlook that tray, regardless if it was the first one in, first one out. I'm looking at that set and I go, oh, this set is missing an instrument. I need to put the set in there that's complete, not the one that's missing. Okay, and oftentimes when you have missing instruments from a set, you need to confirm with the OR, hey, this instrument set is missing this instrument. Can the surgeon still utilize it? They may in fact tell you, something, no, he needs 2 of those in that set. And if you do send that up, we're going to pop open another set. So not quality, guys. Usable, yes, not quality. All right, so I wind up finding those instruments. You see how long it took me to find them. And I have to test them as well, right? Make sure that they're good. Okay, so I'm testing these instruments. Okay, they checked the test. They passed the test. So I'm going to go ahead and put my little lap tester off to the side. Now it's time to check for cleanliness, right? Again, another question. So I got to tend to that in a few. So I wind up pausing it and then pausing it right back. All right, unpausing it. All right, so here we go. I don't know why I grabbed this towel. I never use a blue towel to check for cleanliness. I seen it there and I just grabbed it. That wasn't good because I'm not going to use a borescope to inspect these instruments because again, our borescope was down, unfortunately. I would normally use a borescope to check my cannulated instruments. I'm using sterile water to flush, and again, I'm looking, I'm like, well, I'm not going to be able to tell if that's dirty. You know, the purpose of flushing is to see if you get any blood or bioburden out of there and making sure that you're getting all that water out of there. Now, many of you will sit here and look at this video and go, well, Jesse, you're not drying your instruments completely. And again, I have my opinion on that. I don't use air at the table. I'm opposed of using instrument air at the table due to aerosolization. I think it's more of a risk than it is a benefit. But again, that's my opinion. All my single assembled instruments, give it a quick flush. Now, you notice I'm not using that much water, right? Just takes a little bit to see if there's anything in there. This is where the trust factor comes in. For the instruments that are single unit instruments, you're hoping that D.W.D.Y.D did the right thing and cleaned them completely because there's no way to verify whether they're clean. I can't get a borescope down there. I can't get a testing kit down there. It's just I can't get a brush down there. I just have to flush that with some sterile water to make sure that that nothing comes out of there. The problem with this flushing method is that if there is dried up debris in there, the flushing method isn't going to get that out of there. Now, if there's some dried up debris, I may be able to manipulate my jaw, and you see me manipulating my jaw a little bit. You're going to be able to see or feel, not see, you're going to feel that, oh, this doesn't feel very fluid. Something's like holding this back. So I went ahead, I'm flushing instruments that are not insulated because there was other instruments in this set that required some flushing because it has a port on there. Again, you want to make sure that your instruments are clean. This is the only way that you're going to verify cleanliness, unless you say, you know something, I don't need to verify cleanliness on the prep and pack side because my decon crew does all. So if that's the case, why do we inspect instruments? We're inspecting to make sure that the cleanliness was done correctly, that the cleaning process was successful. So now I'm just injecting air into all of my instruments to get as much residual water out of it. Again, I don't use much water, so a nice little air flush should get most of the water out of there. If there's a little bit of water in there, I'm not really concerned about that. Now, some people argue with me about that and say, well, no, they say the instruments need to be dry. I get it. I understand, and I completely understand that argument. It's just I haven't seen the data showing that, having a little bit of water in your instruments is going to hinder the process, right? It actually, at one point, it was actually recommended that you purge your laparoscopic instruments with water to help the steam sterilization process. I actually thought that was a pretty good idea because it's hard to get steam into these single-use instruments like these single-unit instruments. Steam is passive, even though it's under pressure, getting in there and those, it is shown by data that lumen items, it's very difficult for steam to get in there for that temperature to reach. So having a little bit of moisture in there is not gonna, in my opinion, is not going to interfere with the sterilization process. All right, so for my items that are cannulated and I moisten, I throw a brush through as well. Yes, I do use a brush on the prep and pack side. I'm against the toothbrush style brushes. Those brushes are not used for inspection. They are used to clean. Cannulated brushes are used to clean in decon, but can be used for inspection in the prep and pack side as long as you have a strong policy and procedure supporting that practice. As you can see, I'm putting the brush in, it comes out on the other side. I use a tissue to blot it to see if I get any bioburden or anything out there, and I slowly take it out and blot it again, making sure I see no bioburden, no debris. Okay, once I'm done with that, everything goes in the trash. I dry at my station, and now it's time to start identifying. You see how long it took me to do this inspection? Again, laparoscopic sets should not be done quickly. It should actually take you some time because there's a lot that goes into inspecting and testing laparoscopic instruments. Now I'm identifying the instruments, I'm placing it on the rack, right? Checking off one by one because these instruments, you either know them by heart or you don't know the name of them, and you have to check those part numbers, okay? Checking that jaw, making sure that it opens and closes fluidly. All right, so here's where you have to look at your part numbers if you're not familiar with your laparoscopic instruments. All right, and I continue this process, okay, for instruments that come apart. Okay, I've tested it. I checked for cleanliness. Now I have to function test it, right? What's the point of me doing laparoscopic instruments, making sure that they're clean, making sure that the installation test passes, if when I try to assemble it, it doesn't work? You have to do the function test. I see so many people skip this step. It's just like, to me, it's kind of crazy. It's like, unless you assemble it, some facilities allow for you to assemble your laparoscopic instruments before sending it up. And I've seen actually for this manufacturer, I've seen the updated IFU where you can assemble the instruments prior to sterilization. It does allow that now. At one point it did not. It does now allow for you to assemble laparoscopic instruments prior to sterilization, which helps in the OR. But again, that's part of the function testing. You have to make sure that these lap instruments fit in the sleeve, that you can go ahead and turn it and lock it, and that when you attach that handle on it, that it's going to go ahead and do what it's supposed to do. All right, and then I organize it on the rack nice and neat. Okay, making sure everything is in its place. Trying to follow the count sheet as best as possible. That way identification in the OR is a little bit quicker and more efficient. Okay, I had to pause the video for a second here because I had to take care of some business. I apologize. Back to the normal scheduled program. Checking those inserts, right? You have to check those inserts for cleanliness, right? Okay, and here's the function test yet again. Okay, opens and closes, and then take it apart because we do not keep our laparoscopic instruments assembled for sterilization. We actually disassemble it. All right, continue this process, checking off the boxes, making sure everything is where it's supposed to be at. Okay, this is one of the needle drivers here. So actually, I just put this on the rack. I should have inspected that one. So there you go. I just reminded myself, wait a minute, Jesse, did you just put that on the rack and not inspect it? Shame on you, buddy. All right. Make sure that sits on the rack there. Okay, grabbing it again. Sometimes we get sidetracked. There are points where we get sidetracked with what we're supposed to be doing, and we don't do the right thing. And I'm not saying that I don't miss processes and that I always do the right process. I try to do the right process every single time. Now, I noticed that one of my handles is damaged. I'm going to show you the damage in a second. I had to go find another damage. Another handle. But we try again. Sometimes we, try to skip the process, or, sometimes we get a little frustrated with what we're doing and we skip a step or two. That should never be the case, but it happens. I'm not going to sit here that it doesn't happen. It does happen. All right, so I do show you the damage here. So it was actually missing a button on the top. Flip that off to the side. Check off the next. All right. Making sure that button works. Make sure that the collar's around there. I place that in the bottom of the basket. All right. What am I looking for here? Oh, tip protector there. So this was actually one of the injection needles here. Our count sheet stated that we put a tip protector on there. So I did that. Placed that in the bottom of the basket. Okay, making some room here. All right, time to look at these single. Now, I was looking for its partner there, so it's two of them. Checking those jaws out, okay, because that's the part that's going to be nice and dirty is the jaw. All right, and then place it on the rack. Making sure everything goes in there nice and smooth. Okay, and I don't put the handles all on the same side so it can fit on the rack a little bit more spacious there so you don't knock one out. Again, you see I just paused the video and unpaused it because I had to take care of something else. Again, this usually throws me off of my groove. So it's like I forget where I'm at on my count sheet. And this is where I have to look for numbers on the sheet. So I'm not completely familiar with these instruments. I can probably look at the tip and know, but I know what I'm looking for. It's just for some reason I had to look at that part number to ensure that I had what I was looking for. All right. And I did a little skimpy job there with the inspection. You see how quickly I inspected that. That was cheesy there. That was garbage. Okay. And looking for a part number here for an instrument that I know. All right, looking at that jaw there. Under magnification, which I should have been doing with every single instrument. Every single instrument. All right, there's my partner in crime right there. You know, giving me the pass down, giving me the lowdown of what's going on. All right, and I probably get more distracted than other technicians because of my position. But again, it took me a while to go ahead and do this, and I try as I'm listening to what he's telling me. I try to continue doing my task. That way I don't lose my spot there. I don't know if he noticed that I was recording. He probably didn't because he would have moved out the way. But anyway, continuing on here. Okay, that's the next instrument on this count sheet. Okay, getting that space right there. There you go. Okay, again, checking the part numbers. And again, this is all part of the inspection process because even when I'm looking at the part number, I'm looking at that handle, making sure that there's no soil on that handle as well. Again, a second, third look. You see how many times I touch this instrument, right? And again, it's all part of the quality process, making sure everything's good. Now, this instrument I had to get from the backup wall because the one that I had in the set was damaged. Okay, checking it off on the count sheet again. Okay, I'm getting down to the wire here. Now, some of the instruments had no place on this stringer, right? I mean, on this rack. I couldn't find a spot for it. So I had to go ahead and sit it on top like so. And you'll see later on when I try to box this instrument up, this instrument set, that I had to do some arrangements here. So, all right, so all of my instruments are on the rack there. Okay, I got an instrument in my hand here that I was like, wait a minute. I don't think I've seen this on a count sheet. Did I miss it? Again, making sure that I didn't miss an instrument. So that instrument did not belong on the count sheet. So I went ahead and put that off to the side there. Okay, there's all my forceps. Okay, checking everything off. And now I am going to go ahead and print off my count sheet and my tags. Putting everything together here. There you go. Placing the rack in that basket. And here you go, putting it off to the side. Now, there's another thing I want you guys to notice here. If you look at the basket in the bottom, you notice that the far side does not have one of the little feet. Those feet are actually important on these baskets. They keep that basket off the bottom of the container so that any moisture sits underneath that basket and is not soaked through your liner, whatever you got in there. So we didn't have any replacement feet on there. We should have to be able to replace those little feet on there Those are actually really important. So check with your vendors to see if he has. I know they sell them because I used to buy them before, for all of our baskets. But you seen I got my count sheet. I placed that in a craft style bag. Put my count sheet on top. Put my forceps on the top of the rack as well. And then I went off and got a basket. Now, I told you in the beginning of this video that I wind up getting the wrong size basket. I wind up getting one that's too long. And I noticed that when I got to the field. I was like, oh man, got to go back and grab another basket. So again, another wasted movement. So I look, you see that? I'm like, what? Really? Really? All right, no problem. Just going to go take a walk and go grab another basket. It's not too far. A couple seconds off the clock here that I could have taken off if I'd have grabbed the right basket for this container. And then you'll see when I try to put this in the container, that it actually, I had to rearrange some stuff in there so it can fit, so that the lid can fit on the container. So this container that I got was actually a perforated bottom container. So that actually, when you put the basket in there, actually makes the basket sit a little bit higher than usual. So that was an issue as well. So I got my filters here. Okay, make sure that the only hole in the filter is the one in the center, right? So hold that up to the light, looking for any microscopic tears in the filters. You're gonna put that in the bottom, checking the filter retention plates. Pop them down and try your little DJ spin. They should not spin on you, right? All right, so I'm grabbing my basket here. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and put that right there in the bottom. Okay, another good question from one of the technicians there. Okay, let me assist her real quick. Again, knocking some minutes off of my time here. Adding some minutes to my time, let's put it that way. Or seconds, really. Took a couple seconds, right? So, going in there, putting a little, giving her some instructions. All right. So, as you can see, I am putting the other filters on the lid here. Okay, checking those retention plates, make sure that they're clean, that there's no cracks or chips in there. Doing my little DJ spin to make sure that it's on there correctly and secure. And then let's put this lid on. Now, as I put the lid on, I didn't even have to press down. I noticed that it wasn't sitting correctly. So I tried to rearrange these craft style bags on here to see if it'll sit there a little bit better. And a few forceps that were actually sitting on top. So again, I tried to put it on and it just didn't feel right. So I was thinking that the rack wasn't sitting correctly inside of the basket. So I'm checking for that, trying to push that rack down a little bit. But what I wind up doing is taking the whole instrument set out and just rearranging some stuff in there because it wasn't sitting right. So the forceps that I had laying on the top, I wind up putting them in the bottom basket, standing up. Again, another question that was being asked. Okay. So help that out real quick. All right, so you see me move that forcep. I'm actually going to slide that in the bottom basket there to take it at the top because I seen that probably was putting a little bit too much pressure on the lid there. There's another forcep there that I actually found a little spot there that I can just click it on in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the forceps back. I actually put the forceps in the basket instead of sitting it on top of the rack. I just slid it right there in the basket part of it. So I went ahead, slid that under there. Okay. All right, you see the bag is in the bottom now. So everything is sitting right. Okay, nothing's sitting up out of that basket. Place my count sheet. Where's my count sheet at? There, go right there. Count sheet on top, and then that lid nice and secure. All right, put my box locks on. Okay. So got my container locks on both sides. Okay, I also need to place my tags on there. So I had a missing instrument and the identification of the actual basket, one on each side. Okay, one, two, the missing instrument and the basket identifier on the one side and then the other. Okay, so this is how we do that here. Okay, I'll turn my basket around. You can see that missing instrument tag right there with the description of the instrument that's missing out of there, so you can communicate to the OR. Or those that are picking a case card that, hey, this set is missing this instrument, is it a wise choice to grab this instrument or not? Lastly, I'm placing my lot sticker control tag on there. And that's it, guys. All right, guys, as always, stay true to yourselves. Keep it 100. Continue educating yourself. Until next time, peace.